Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Not Without My Sister, where I, Rosemary McCabe, am in fact without my sister Beatrice. She's not here with us right now. Her entire family has been struck down. I was going to say strucken down, but that is not a word. Her entire family has been struck down by some terrible lurgy. And so in her place, we have our cousin, Roseanne Smith, who turned up to Fort Wayne the Saturday before last, not without her sister, which was a surprise. Roseanne, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? I'm back home and I'm finally over my jet lag of coming home.
Oh
Just,
God.
obviously I'm not because I can't even get that sentence straight.
How long did the jet lag last?
So we were supposed to arrive home on Sunday morning, so I was kind of really looking forward to my Sunday at home, chilling out, taking my time and getting to bed at because we were to land home at 9 in the morning. But our flight from Fort Wayne, Chicago on Saturday evening was cancelled, so we had to get a Greyhound for 4 hours on Sunday. We did get an extra evening with you and Brandon though, which was great fun.
But that's not ideal because that
No.
was the perfect plan to have Sunday to yourself,
Yeah,
to
exactly.
relax, recover before you get back to work. That's ideal. So to have that snatched from you is a cruel twist
Yeah,
of
so I
fate.
got I got back to my house, straight onto my computer, straight into my first team meeting, which was cool because they're a great bunch of folk. So it was good to see them all. And two of them are American, so they 100% understood me yawning the whole way through it. But like, I literally
Oh.
yawned through every single meeting last week and apologise profusely to my colleagues for that. But, you know, them's the breaks. Yeah, so it just didn't, it took me a while to get over it. But I'm over it now, I think.
Tell me about, okay, so you announced to us a couple of months ago that you were going to come visit us in Fort Wayne, but unbeknownst to us, you were actually bringing your sister. Was that
Yeah,
always the
so
plan?
yeah, it was always the plan. Like, I thought about bringing one or both of my parents or something, something like that, but they weren't as keen on the surprise element or whatever. But it was just because a while back you had an episode, I think, about surprises, if I remember rightly, or it came up in one of your episodes, and I just thought, oh my God, it would be amazing. And also, obviously, it was Beatrice's birthday last week, so I thought it would be perfect birthday kind of surprise or whatever like this. So I turned up in Fort Wayne Airport late on a Saturday night with this strange woman in tow, as both of you kind of your reaction was, and then I turned around and there was this kind of weird woman hovering like beside you because we were both wearing masks and everything. And basically yourself and Beatrice were like, oh my God, Roseanne has picked up some loser on the plane that she's going to offer or she's offered a lift to or something like this, so. And it was really funny because the one thing Beatrice said was, oh, we're going to have to get another ticket for David Sedaris.
which we did fortuitously.
Yes, it was great and we thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great night out. We went out for dinner to a great Mexican place in Fort Wayne, in this kind of trendy area in Fort Wayne, and then round the corner to see David Sedaris. That was brilliant. And I'm so glad because I can't remember, you told me that you'd bought tickets for David Sedaris and I'd literally just finished his Carnival of Snackery book.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, very exciting, because he does talk a lot in that about going and doing book signings and
Yeah, and
meeting
tours.
people. Yeah, yeah. So we didn't actually get him to sign any books. The queue was too long. Well, we nearly did, but then we just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just missed the line. I have thought about getting my book signed by him before. Like I've seen him, I think, twice before in Dublin. But because he talks about his book signings in his shows, right? And he often writes essays about like things people have said to him at book signings or weird things he has written in people's books. I feel a great pressure that I couldn't actually approach him unless I had the perfect thing to say.
100%. And I can't remember. I did have something for him. Had something that I wanted him to put into your book. Oh, I can't remember what it was, but it's something that came up last week. And anyway, if I remember it, I'll tell you. But I just was like, oh, that'd be perfect. Tap your Mickey or something like that. I don't know.
That is for
That's a
everyone.
reference,
That's a
everyone.
Disneyland reference for anyone who doesn't get it.
A Disney reference. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to be
Tell me,
Irish to get that one.
what did you think about Fort Wayne? Because obviously you know us, you've spoken to us since we moved here, you've spoken to Beatrice a lot since you moved here, and then you've listened to the podcast and to us talking about Fort Wayne. So did it match your expectations, or was it different to how we've made it out to be?
Yeah, it was funny because obviously I've spoken to you on video. I've seen, like I follow you on Instagram. I've seen bits of your house and I've seen bits of Beatrice's house and photos from your mom and and bits of the garden and all of this kind of stuff. And it was just really weird to connect all of those in reality.
Yeah.
Like, so like I was like, oh, that's where that picture is hanging in relation to that thing, that couch, or do you know what I mean? Like it was just it all made sense all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
yeah,
And it was great to see kind of how close yourself and Beatrice are to each other if you have a car. That's a whole other thing. And then just some of the mad, the mad, just like, and in a way, what was really interesting, I suppose, is how different your place is to Beatrice's,
mm-hmm.
what I suppose I was most amazed about, like, I live in a sizable enough house here in Dublin. We're very lucky, like, when we managed to buy and everything, but just I couldn't get over how, I hate to say this, big both your houses were, but it's not a reflection, I don't think, but like that's how big all of the houses are. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? It's
yeah,
not a reflection on you being particularly loaded or anything. It's more just that the houses are built big and built kind of spacious. And I hardly saw a house attached to another house, around kind of where you are. And even
yeah.
closer to the city centre, they all seem to be sort of, this is my bit of land. You're there and I'm here and stay away
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is quite rare that you'd get kind of semi-detached houses, and if you do, they're called townhouses, and I think they're usually regarded more like apartments or condos. So I think often when people, well, now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I What I gather is that people who live in townhouses will often be younger renters, and then when you have a family, you're expected to move into your own home with its own land on all four sides, if you know what I mean.
Mm,
But that's actually interesting that you said that about the size of the houses, because I feel like in Ireland the size of your house is very much an indicator of your wealth or your quote unquote success. Whereas in America, because there's so much space, I think within the kind of, I mean, once you get out of, like, obviously, so I'm not talking about people who are living in poverty and I'm not talking about people who are living in extreme wealth, but within the middle, there's actually, can't really tell what people are like based on their houses in the same way that you can in Ireland, I think. And that's one of the things that I find weird about America is that obviously, because I'm not from here and I don't really pick up on the cultural cues, or I mean, Beatrice and I have talked about this as well, the kind of sartorial cues, it's really hard to figure out who's who, or where they're from or what kind of person they are, because I can't really get it from their house or their car or what they wear or their accents the same way I can in Dublin. You know what I mean? You could go, oh,
mm.
that person's obviously from this part of Dublin and that person is clearly like a bit of a hippie or is clearly a bit of a hipster, whereas I can't really figure out the same things here.
But that's good thing as well because then you approach everyone as equal, like, and that has like historically been problematic in a lot of cultures. Do you know what I mean? Like where people are on the inside or on the outside. And I think it's no harm that that's one of the great things about America, isn't it? Is that those kind of things can be broken down. I know maybe if we were American we could, all those tales we could read or whatever like this, but certainly a country that has a lot of immigration, like Canada, for example, growth is all based on immigration. It
Mm.
must be really liberating. It must be great to live in
Yeah,
countries
yeah,
like
because you can
yeah.
come here and you can be whoever you want. But I do think you miss that kind of sense of, like in Ireland, if I go to a yoga class, right, and I'm sitting next to somebody and I see that they have a certain type of backpack or they're wearing a certain type of jeans, I can almost kind of go, oh, she must be into XYZ. And you feel a kind of a connection. It's that kind of tribal thing where you're like, that's my type of person. It's probably not as easy as like a backpack, but you might see a book someone's reading, you might see, and
No.
obviously I can see books people are reading here too, but it's just not the same. Like, I don't feel like there are as many identifiers here of people, or that I'm not clued into them in the same way I was in Ireland.
And
Like, it's
and
interesting.
that was one of the things that I thought actually, because we were there obviously the week before the midterms, and one of the things we were asking about were all the posters around, and it was funny
Oh
because
yeah.
none of them were for, like, they didn't seem to be for like those big, well, the ones that we saw, and maybe it was just the neighborhood we were in, but they didn't seem to be for those big roles that you hear about, like governor, senator, whatever the hell. It was all school
Hmm.
board stuff, and we kept like,
Yeah.
and like, one of I can't remember if it was Brandon or Don, but one of the Americans made a comment about you can tell by the color of the poster who it's for. And I was like, no, I can't. I've no clue. I'm not clued in enough, like, on
Yeah.
American politics. And then it was like, you know, I was texting you earlier today joking about, like, oh, I see your woman with the hard hat got in, that the work is going to get done. There was a woman with the hard hat, and we were like, what is she trying to say with the hard hat? Like, she's going to get the work
Well,
done
sorry,
or
it took
whatever.
us ages to figure out that it was a hard hat. We were like, is it a
Yeah.
ball? It like for ages I thought she was pregnant and was kind of holding her huge, round, perfectly round pregnant belly, but it was actually a big hard hat placed in front of her.
It's funny that, like, to see the different, like, I suppose, to see the election posters, and like, I've been
Hmm.
in other European countries with election posters, and it's funny how similar they all are in a way, no matter what
Oh
country
yeah,
you're
yeah,
in,
yeah. That they've
and
got
it's
the
just the
art down
real.
to like here's where you should be looking in the camera. Here's the expression you should have on your face.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Here's the proportions that we like in the poster. But what's interesting about Indiana is that so it's never really in the news when it comes to elections because Indiana is and has been for years a red state. So you actually don't see that many posters for governor, for senator and stuff because it's kind of a done deal. Like a lot of people that I would know and that I would be friendly with and that I would follow on social media were talking about it's time to fire Jim Banks, get rid of Jim Banks. He's the Republican, I think, he's the Republican Jim Banks senator, Ted Holcomb or somebody Holcomb. I'm going to get this all wrong now. Is the governor, but Jim Banks, I think, is very Republican, very right wing, like anti Roe, pro quote unquote family values, quite religious, conservative, and so all the people, like basically everyone I know, was going hashtag fire Jim Banks. Make sure you vote tomorrow to fire Jim Banks. He got in with a landslide victory.
Mm.
So like from my in my little echo chamber, I was like, oh, he's done, he's out of here. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he
Like,
really
not a
wasn't.
hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you weren't following, yeah, the people who would be voting for him or whatever. And I suppose that was, I suppose, the really interesting thing, because the posters, a lot of the posters that we saw on that woman that we were talking about, she was looking to be elected to the school board, which I found
Mm-hmm.
insane. Having been, well, I was never on a school board, but I was on the parents committee, like, and I was,
Yeah.
I'm a compulsive volunteer. And like, what I found amazing was the idea that somebody would, like, canvass publicly to be voted, that it's a kind of a public position.
Mm-hmm.
And just the idea that they would be bringing politics to a school board, because one of the big things, like, in Ireland, certainly when you're on a board, is that I mean, obviously you're a person, right, but you're there for the good of, like, you have to leave everything at the door, and if there's ever a conflict of interest, like, it's so highly regulated, with the charities regulator
Mm-hmm.
here and everything, and like school boards and all those different kind of boards would be often be registered charities. And like, if there was a whiff of politics, like, I know somebody I was involved in the board of another organization, and somebody was had who had just been voted onto the board, and he never got to a meeting, because between the time he kind of was voted in and our next meeting, he got involved in a research assistant, for a TD or whatever like that, and he basically stepped down because that was too close to politics to be involved in the board of
Wow.
a. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
and you're just kind of going, like, it just seems so wrong that somebody with very outstated and outspoken views could then be responsible, like, for my child's education, or obviously my cousin's educations, and that I just find a little bit freaky.
It's so weird. As far as I can make out, so I obviously am very new here and I'm kind of learning by osmosis. I can't vote yet because I'm not a citizen, so I haven't been educating myself in terms of like who am I going to vote for. But I've, like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm trying to read a bit more news. There's a big story at the moment about banned books across America. What I gather is that the school board functions more like miniature departments of education within each county or within each school zone. So it's almost like the school board has the power to hire and fire principals, to hire and fire teachers, to change curriculum, to ban like students from organizing about certain things, to, in state or get rid of certain programs as well if they feel like, what, kids don't really need music. The school board can decide to get rid of the music program and replace it with something else. It's really bizarre to me. And it's also bizarre because you don't have to have any qualification. Like I don't really mind the idea of, schools having kind of committees where certain things are decided. But in a sense, I feel like they should be paid roles and they should be based on people's skills and experience. So you should have like people who've been teachers or people who've worked in education, people who've worked in speech therapy, people who've worked in, child therapy and child development. But instead, it's literally just random moms and dads who have really strong views about whether or not critical race theory should be taught in their school, or like whether or not football players should be exempt from a certain exam or whatever. Like, it's really bizarre to me that it's just a popularity vote based on absolutely no, background whatsoever. What was your favorite, like what was the most surprising thing, and your favorite and your least favorite part about Fort Wayne and or the Midwest in general?
Well, I think the thing I was most surprised about, just from hearing you talk, maybe when you're home or, and when you talk about what you missed the most about Ireland, was actually I thought the food was great. I
Oh,
really
did you?
enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, now obviously, in your house, you're kind of conscious of our tastes. You'd have similar tastes, and there was so like Brandon made us a delicious meal, and then when we were over in Beatrice's house, there was beautiful food prepared for us there and everything like that. So I just thought the food was super, obviously visiting with you, but also then, we ordered some food in Kel Surprise, everybody, are you surprised?
Excuse
But
me, not
like,
all of our podcast listeners listen to my money diary, so they might
oh
not know
right,
about
okay.
my takeaway problem.
Yes, okay. But we had like delicious, we had Panera actually twice in the end, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous. Like, it was really good. And they have this
It's
really
really
nice
good, yeah.
idea where you buy like, you can get like half a salad and half a sandwich, or half a salad. And then that was the thing that I couldn't get over, was the obsession with macaroni cheese. Like the kids were mad about it. In this Panera place, you could get like a half salad and a selection of different macaronis. I was like, what the heck? Like, if it had been pastas, I could understand, but it was specifically macaroni cheese. I was like,
They also have a macaroni cheese, grilled cheese. It's grilled with the macaroni cheese inside the sandwich.
oh, gross.
And you can get that, I think, in Culver's. There's another place that does mac and cheese. And if you ever go, I should have taken you. Actually, no, I don't think you would have been there because it's Sunday morning. Granite City, this restaurant downtown, does like a Sunday morning breakfast buffet. Beatrice refuses to go. I've been twice.
Myself and Beatrice also have a shared distaste for a place that was near your house that I said, I'm never going there. And Beatrice was like, yes, I agree. We will never go there. A restaurant, a barbecue place near your house called Shig's in Pit.
Chicken pit. I know the name is awful, but it's really delicious. The
Just
food is really
I
good.
couldn't eat there. I just couldn't. I'd be, gross. Too
Oh,
many
it's so
bad
nice. I
imagery in my
know.
brain. Ugh, like this.
I know it is a terrible name, but the food is really good. But the breakfast buffet does, so they do things like bacon and then like American sausages, which are anemic and disgusting. But they also, everywhere you go, has mac and cheese. They have mac and cheese in the breakfast buffet as well.
That's bonkers, isn't it? I just
Oh
couldn't.
my god! I just remembered I was at a wedding and they had mac and cheese as well at the wedding.
What?
Yeah, they had like a buffet and they
When
had
we
mac and
went to
cheese
your
in the buffet.
friend's house
Oh,
for
they had mac and cheese.
dinner, they had mac and cheese as well. So I was like, okay, it's obviously an Indiana thing, maybe. I don't know, but like mac and cheese everywhere you went, and yeah, I couldn't, because I wouldn't pick mac and cheese for a sort of hearty type food, but yet there it was, and then we kind of, but it was delicious. It
It
just
was
came
delish.
out.
Neither
It
would
was
I choose it
delicious.
as a party type food, actually, now that you mention it, but it was very tasty.
And it was nice to have like hot food after. Now that's the other thing. I was quite disappointed. It wasn't very cold, and I got a video from you or your mum like a week before with snow, and I was like, "Where?" And I was
Oh, the
checking the
weather. I thought you
weather.
meant the mac and cheese. I was like, why
No,
would you want cold mac and cheese?
no, no, I
Gotcha.
wouldn't want cold mac. I meant the weather. So we were trick or treating, and it was broad daylight, and it wasn't freezing, which often it is here. And I think it was kind of unusual, maybe, for it to be so warm. Like,
It
do you
was a
remember
very
we were
balmy end of October, start of
Yeah.
November. Yeah.
Yeah, we were sitting outside like in sort of 20 degrees heat,
Oh my
enjoying the
God, that was
sun while
gorgeous.
you.
Well, you just missed it now because yesterday and today it's been snowing. There's a layer
Oh,
of snow
what?
all over our back garden. Yeah.
Oh, send me a photo. I'd love to see it.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you right now. It's lovely, like, but it's just
Cold.
definitely snowy and it's cold now, and I will not be. And like, I was out about 3 days ago. I was out with the baby and the dog, and I was doing some weeding again. The baby was sitting on a blanket, and then yesterday, lashings of snow.
I mean, I say I would have loved it, but I would have loved it for about 10 minutes and then go, oh my God, this is such a pain.
Well, yeah, like snow. I feel like snow is a bit like intense heat. It's really nice if you can do nothing, like if you can just be on your holidays in it. So it actually would have been fine for you guys because you can go out, you can enjoy the snow, you can build a snowman, you can even just look at it and then come back inside and have a hot chocolate.
Mm.
But like last night, I had to bring our son Finn has strep throat, and I had to bring him to the Ready Med clinic yesterday at about 6, like in the snow, and then I had to
Oh,
drive across town to the 24-hour pharmacy to get his antibiotic. Like I dropped him home first, and then I went back. So I hate driving in the
oh
snow,
yeah, it's pit.
and it wasn't actually like it wasn't icy or anything because it hadn't like the ground wasn't frozen enough for it to be icy, but it's just still like dark and wet and sludgy and gross.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the other thing, obviously, I couldn't get over. But I think I might be unusual as an Irish person, but I couldn't get over the amount of driving that we had to do. And the fact that I had to be helped into Brandon's car as well. Like I couldn't get in off my own because it was so big and I'm so small. And
So high,
we have a
yeah.
photo to show exactly how I did nothing to dispel the myth of leprechauns in Ireland whilst visiting Brandon.
Oh my god, yeah, must share that.
There's a hilarious photo where you literally come up to about his elbow. And yeah, I just couldn't get over the amount of driving. I think I saw one cyclist during my whole time
Mm.
there. Like, and it's perfect cycling country because it's so flat. It would be
Oh my
amazing
god, it would be
cycle around.
amazing,
Yeah.
but it's really not perfect cycling country because nobody expects cyclists. There are no cycle lanes. Well, there are cycle lanes, I think, downtown, and
Yeah,
downtown
I
you
took
can
a
rent
photo of
these like
one.
city bikes. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, I remember. But like where we live, because we were talking about getting bikes during the summer, and I was like, maybe we should get bikes because the boys have bikes and they're quite into cycling now. They'll cycle, up and down our estate and stuff. And I was like, maybe we should get bikes and we could go. And then I was like, you actually wouldn't go out of like I wouldn't go out of our estate on a bike
No.
with a child. Now I'd go on the path, but the problem is the path then just suddenly ends around the corner, so you can only go so far.
I went for a walk with Atlas one day and literally got to the end of there was no more pavement. And it wasn't just like the
Mm-hmm.
pavement ended, there was actually like a 2 foot drop and then a gap and then a flipping intercontinental railway, and
Oh yeah.
it was just crazy to see. And like then, like Abigail, my sister, was absolutely fascinated by the trains. Like it's really evocative. You can imagine they go near your house. Obviously, you know this. You've probably
Mm-hmm.
don't notice it anymore, but the first night we were like, oh my god, that sound of the because it kind of has to make this sort of beeping is not right, kind of horn blowing sound as it
Oh, it's
comes up to
intense.
yeah, and it you can hear it like, but it's so evocative, like it's real. You could just imagine the littlest hobo jumping onto the freight trains and stuff like this. It
Well,
was
so you
fun.
know what? I always had great respect for people who jumped on train. You know that I was like, oh my god, I could never do that. It was so scary. Blah blah blah. And now I see them going past. And I'm like, they're slow. I could jump
Yeah,
up on one of
very
those. Now,
slow.
now
Yeah,
some of
yeah.
them go a bit fast, but like
Mm.
most of them go very slowly. You could walk alongside and then just suddenly hop up. Do
Yeah,
you know what I
but
mean? You'd be grand.
I think that was the thing that I was surprised by, and I suppose it's just how everything is so spread out. But then
Mm-hmm.
everything is so massive that it has to be spread out. Like you brought us to Walmart, like it's literally the size of an IKEA, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's huge. Like, but not. It doesn't like IKEA. You're not aware of how big it is because it's all broken up and
Yes, and you have all
yourself,
the
right?
little the
Whereas
areas.
I took this photo of Walmart just because you could just see all of the fluorescent lights disappearing into the distance. It was like something from a sci-fi movie. I'm sure they shoot half sci-fi movies in empty Walmarts. It was insane. And then the other thing that I couldn't get over the size of it was, and it was definitely, actually, it was probably the size of an Amazon, was this place around the corner from you called very deceptively called the chapel, which makes it sound tiny and like it's a church big enough for like 20 people. I'd say it'd fit 20,000, would it? Something, I know, okay, that's a
I
bit
can
of an
probably tell you now in a minute. Hang on.
well, don't
Uh,
worry about it.
yeah,
But
it's a
maybe
it's a
that's a bit
mega
of an
church.
yeah, 20,000 might be a bit much. Actually, I haven't a clue what I'm talking
And I started watching a TV show on Netflix called Greenleaf.
about. Right.
And I got really obsessed with mega churches that I was like, oh my God, mega church, that's mad. Like, I really want to go and see, like, I really want to go and see a mega church, blah, blah. And I decided I really wanted to go to the chapel. And my mom is always saying, oh my God, I can't wait to come over to America and see what mass is like, right? She's obsessed with threatening us with this. She's like, I hope you know what time Sunday mass is at. But anyway, once I started watching Greenleaf, I was like, I actually do know what time Sunday mass is at and I want to go. And she was like, oh, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. It would be very interesting. It is always interesting to go to mass in other countries, I suppose, in a way, just to see that it's not the same flavor everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of always a bit like I remember going to mass in France and they were having communions and all the communicants were like 12 because they do their communion and confirmation at the same time or something like that. I can't remember, something
Oh.
like, slightly different take on it or whatever. But then the other thing that was that I couldn't get over, and I suppose I'm lucky in that, we own our own house and everything. And I know plenty of people who live in, apartments and stuff in Dublin would be like, yeah, this kind of standard. But we were talking, about we were marveling at how lovely your house was and how neat everything was, and you talked about this homeowners association and how
Mm.
they kind of had certain rules. Like, so for example, we were driving through this, I suppose, village or whatever at one point, and you said, and we were like, oh, it's so cute, it's so nice, it's so like it's so well kept and everything, and you were like, well, in this area, you get fined if your grass is longer than so many
It was
inches,
6 inches, I think.
6 inches or something like this, and we
Yeah.
were like, oh God, Jesus, what about, especially like coming from here where we have this whole no mow May thing, and then like all of the parks around here, they loads of the parts of the park go wild, particularly in spring, to allow for the pollinators and stuff like
Hmm.
this. And it just seems a bit old fashioned to have those rules. But then
Yeah.
I was commenting at one point on how handy, like, that you have your what we call futility room upstairs in your house. And I think that's so handy because you sort out the clothes and then you put them away and it's all on the same level. And I said, oh, but it must be a real pain when you're hanging out your clothes because you have to lug everything back downstairs. And then you pointed out that you are, what's the word? It's
Forbidden,
forbidden.
verboten.
Verboten, yeah, you're forbidden from having a washing line.
Yeah.
And
Which is
like
so nuts. I
it
mean,
is, I mean, and the thing is, from like, if we go back to our conversation about the school board and the politics getting into it, and how you kind of get the impression that everything's very right wing in your area. I can't imagine the homeowners association changing those rules and being that green anytime to say, like, actually everybody is forbidden from using their tumble dryers and get those. I mean, it makes sense in the winter, right? Obviously, you can't be hanging out, you'd be hanging out sheets of ice or
yeah.
whatever. But during this, like, even when we were there was fabulous drying,
Glorious drying weather.
fabulous
I
drying.
know, I know. America is mad to me because, in a way, and especially more conservative people's politics, is very wrapped up in the idea of freedom, right? And is like, I should be free to do what I want and say what I want and own a gun and, do this and do that. And like, I won't have my kids taught about things that I don't want them taught about, like this kind of stuff. Then you're like, the homeowners association says you can't have a washing line and you're okay with that. But it's a weird, like the washing line thing is a weird snobbery because it seems to be considered very déclassé to hang your clothes out.
Okay,
And I'm sure it's not the same all over America, and I'm sure there are some people who don't think that, but that seems to be the reasoning behind washing lines being banned is that it looks trashy. But you know what the thing is as well? In Ireland, if you have a washing line, nobody can see it from the street, right? Because your
no,
house is like next to your neighbor's house, and even if it's fully detached, you've got a little passageway at the side where you've got a little gate, and your shed might be down there. Nobody's seeing your washing line. Whereas here, because there's so much space, and the houses, there's so much room between the houses, and everybody has this big garden, and a lot of people don't have fences. You can see everybody's everything. So like that's why they get more involved. You know what I mean? Because it's part of
the
the
look and
look
feel of
of
the
the
place.
estate.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
they're selling is the aspiration or whatever like this. And I actually took a photo of a sign about a place around the corner from you, and one of the things they had was like, manicured lawns, some kind of irrigation, and then walking pathways. And I was like, What?" And then I was going for my walk and I went, okay, that makes sense because there's literally nowhere to walk. I mean, I think I was back in
Yeah.
10 minutes, something like this.
Yeah,
So
and
that was
also
kind of,
speaking of the ponds, you were also very shocked when you were like, "Oh no, Abigail went out, didn't she?" And went, "Oh, the pond is lovely. It's such a lovely color." And I was like, "That's dye."
I couldn't get over that. Yeah. I was like, okay, well, why don't they just grow more stuff? Like, and that's the thing, I suppose, where you are. I mean, I think you said that you're the second owners of the house, but it's all quite
Hmm.
new. That's the
Yeah,
other thing.
yeah,
And I suppose, it's the same in certain parts of Dublin. There's new builds, and they don't have, much vegetation. Like they
Yeah.
still need to. But I know as well, like from friends of mine who live in, more managed kind of apartment blocks and everything, like that one of the things this friend of mine was saying was that she was working away at home and looking out, and there's constantly somebody sort of spraying the place or mowing the lawn and trimming
Mm-hmm.
the place. And she's kind of thinking, I need to get onto the management company about, like, we need to cut back on a bit of that, particularly in the spring, because you have to let but
Yeah.
then she was going, but like, I'm just a tenant. I'm not even do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
she's
So
not an owner.
yeah, she didn't see where she could sort of have an effect,
Yeah.
yeah, like you say, it's bonkers like that. They're all about this freedom, and yet they have these weird rules like no trick or treating except between 5 and 7.
Well, now, so I don't think that trick or treating is forbidden outside those hours, but it's more like here are the hours that we have selected for trick or treating. So they're the hours that you can expect trick or treaters at your house. Because what happens here as well is that a lot of people, if they're partaking in Halloween, they'll open up their garage door and they'll sit in their garage dressed up
Yeah,
and they'll
yeah,
give
yeah,
sweets to people as they come up. So it's more like here are the hours you're expected to like do your neighborly duties and hand out Halloween candy. You know what I mean?
yeah. Okay, I get you.
It's not so often that you have to knock at someone's door and they open the door. It's like they're often waiting outside for you, kind of thing. So I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
noticed that
why.
as well. Yeah, because I know my Californian colleague was like, hell no, it wasn't like that in California. Like she's just like, because we could go trick or treating anytime we liked. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
you've been living in Ireland. Maybe things have changed in I don't know. But anyway, so
No,
it
I mean,
wasn't
like,
really so much like a rule of like everybody has to, it's just sort of
no, I think that's actually genuinely meant to be to make it easier for people. That's one of the few things that's designed, like,
a friendly agreement, I suppose. And it was kind of
yeah.
cool, I have to say, going around the area that we went around, because we went to visit friends and we did it around their house, and it was really nice to see folk sitting out, dressed up, sometimes kind of looking spooky and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
this at their
Mm-hmm.
garage doors. And and it was real obvious the places that were doing the trick or treating, and it was just real. There was a real kind of community buzz, and there was
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
putting,
Which is really nice.
yeah, and it was just, and also then as well, there was folk going around on a golf cart handing out like bags of sweets and everything around the area. And I don't know if they were like the management crew or something, I don't know. And then the fire brigade were going around and jumping off the fire brigade, or whatever you call it, the fire engine, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And
Fire brigade. Yeah.
yeah, and handing out sweets to the kids from their helmets and everything like that. So that was
That
really,
is
really
very
nice.
cute.
Yeah, it was
Although
very
I have
cute.
to
Yeah.
say, in that estate where you guys did the trick or treating, I didn't partake in the trick or treating because I was at home with Atlas, who was asleep. And then when he woke up, I just went over and partook in the mac and cheese. But somebody gave the kids noodles,
Oh yeah.
which was very weird.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were actually delighted.
But that's the thing here. Obviously, people give fruit as well here. Give like little tangerines or satsumas, whatever I never know what they're
I'd
called.
say the kids are disgusted, are they?
Oh, they're
Fruit.
still in the. I have to go through the bags about a week later and take out all the fruit because otherwise it'll go moldy.
Do you remember monkey nuts? I used to hate getting monkey nuts, and they're such a faff to peel as well, even if you do want to eat them, which I never did.
Roasted monkey nuts,
You
particularly, are
love them.
delicious. Yeah, love them. Still to this day.
What's the difference now between a monkey nut and a peanut?
Nothing. Monkey nut is the full thing, and the peanut is what's inside.
Oh,
They're also the same as ground nuts. You see, you learn something new every day, Rosemary.
God, I learn several things every time I talk to you, Roseanne.
Oh, thanks, I think.
Would you
That's a
recommend?
very backhanded compliment.
No, 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 no. That's a compliment. I actually didn't mean that bitchily, although it was good that it sounded bitchy. Would you recommend a trip to the Midwest? I mean, aside from if somebody had family, like like would you think it's interesting, or would you be like stick to New York? You
Being
could be
honest,
honest.
no, I'm going to be honest, I would not. I have to say, and I'm really sorry, because originally when I was planning this trip, you remember we were all planning to come, all five of us,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously that's not a cheap, but it was
Yeah,
post pandemic and la la la. And as I kind of looked around, honest to God, like any of my friends will tell you, I'm a serious planner. I mean, it's what I do for a living, right? I plan like as part of my job. And like when I'm planning our holidays when we go away, like literally I will know, I can tell you exactly where we're going to be eating each day, because the one of I've learned
Beatrice's
from
worst
experience.
nightmare.
I know, but one of the worst things when you're on holidays is not knowing where you're, like if you
True,
have to
and then
wander
going somewhere
around.
crap.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm a serious planner. So a good few months ago when I sort of put this out there with my family, and they were keen. Like, so, like I have a 19-year-old, I have a 16-year-old, and I have a 12-year-old. So my 12-year-old is a girl. She is older than Beatrice's eldest, who would be
Yeah.
the eldest of your lot.
Yeah.
And all of yours are boys. So I have
Yeah.
two boys and a girl. So she would literally have been the only girl there, and she would have been older than all of the other kids. So I was
Yeah.
kind of going,
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to have a bit of a generational difference here, and my lot are going to be interested in very different, and they're all quite like spread out in age in
Mm-hmm.
their way as well. So and they're all very different. Like, oh, like
Yeah.
from your
Yeah.
own kids, they're all different, and they're into different stuff. Now I could imagine my middle kid would have absolutely loved that trip to Sweetwater that Abigail made with Don last weekend. He would have been in his element. I think Carmen would have loved to visited Fort Wayne, which we never made it to, like the actual fort, and
Oh yeah, we didn't do that yet.
and absorbed a lot more about American history and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Ada would love the shopping, you know, or whatever. Not to be too reductive about it, but
No, but I mean,
or
they all might
yeah.
have liked the apple picking.
Oh
Ada
yeah,
and
for sure.
Garmin might have liked Ophelia's for brunch.
Yeah,
Satanta and Garmin
exactly.
might have liked Mercado. Yeah, like you can't really please everyone, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
get you.
exactly. Yeah. So, but when I did all my research, honestly, I didn't see there being enough to do for a full 2 weeks. And like, there
Mm-hmm.
would have been no point in us going over. Like, myself and Abigail came over for a week. We kind of chilled, and Abigail
Yeah,
particularly,
yeah,
she has much younger kids. She was glad to just chill and just
yeah,
like have three adults generally looking after one tiny baby. It was just so chill for us, and
yeah,
like,
yeah. And lots of
um,
tea and
yeah,
reading
and
our
lots of
books,
chats
and
and
yeah,
stuff. And really, like when I thought about it, I was like, I'm not bringing my whole family over just to have cups of tea and chats with my
yeah.
cousins who they've really, obviously they've met you, but they haven't seen, they don't know you as well as myself and Abigail do.
No, but
So
that's
it just
also what you wanted to do, and instead you would have had to be like, okay, guys, we're going to drive an
entertain
hour and a
everyone.
half to go this place today, and we're going to go and
Yeah,
do this, we're going to go and do
exactly.
that, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And actually, it was perfect for me to have a chill kind of holiday. It's been mayhem. That whole back to school thing, getting everybody
yeah.
settled in, this, that, and the other. It's been busy, busy, busy since we came back from our summer holidays. So it was great. But I mean, it was a very authentic experience of like what it's like to be in America. There's no doubt about it.
Well, what it's like to be us. I think
Yeah.
if it was an authentic American experience, you would have eaten more mac and cheese. To be honest.
Oh, well, possibly, yeah. I can't imagine that I could have fit any more mac and cheese into my little body, but I think that it didn't sell itself to me. Like I kind of thought at one point, well, maybe it's very beautiful and we could go for hikes and stuff like that. But that also, it's very agricultural, like so a lot
Hmm.
of the
Hmm.
land
Yeah.
is owned, so there doesn't seem to be much opportunity to kind of get out into the wilderness. It's not like Blair Witch Country or anything like
You
that.
can. I mean, like
Yeah,
people do go hiking, but like I have no
yeah,
idea where they go. So I'd have to have
yeah.
asked like my friend Sydney and gone, where, like, which park do you go to, and where can we? And it would have been an hour and a half drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it would have been length rather than like challenge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in terms
Yeah.
of like you
One
wouldn't
hundred
be
percent.
walking
Yeah.
far, but
No.
not upwards or downwards or whatever. Like
Yeah.
or you know. But for me, it's always going to be the fact that you all are there, and just seeing you and spending and having the opportunity to spend time with you and not having to share you with all your friends like I did when you were home for Atlas's
Oh no,
first
it was
birthday
so
and everything.
nice. It was
That was
so nice,
great.
and it
That was
was.
so nice to see everybody.
And like
Yeah, yeah,
from my point of view, the same thing, right? It was so nice to get to hang out with people and not have to go. Listen, I have to go because I'm meeting this other person, or
exactly.
I have to go home because I told mom and dad I'd be home for dinner, or just you are much more relaxed in your own home in a way, and like obviously when I'm home, there's no option for me to be like I'm going to spend 3 days with this one person. So it was just so nice to go. We have a week and we're all just chilling out and we're all just hanging out and chatting. And like anything we don't get to say, we can say tomorrow,
Yeah,
which you don't get when
exactly.
you come home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we did like Beatrice gave us these pencils when we were leaving, and they just have written on the side of them, "I wet my plants,"
Oh, she gave
which
me
is
one as well.
such a great memory because we did laugh a lot. We're all women of a certain age who've all had multiple childbirths, so
Oh
we did.
God, I've only had one and it came out the sunroof, so I'm not wetting anything. Thanks.
Anyway, we just laughed so much. It was great crack, and it was just the tonic that I needed for after kind of stressful few months and everything like this. And yeah, it was
So
great.
so basically, can I just summarize? You'd recommend it to someone who has a friend or family member in the Midwest, but otherwise
Exactly.
go to
So
New York or LA or Vegas or somewhere.
Or as we were talking, if we had an opportunity to come again, that we might meet you in Chicago and
Yeah,
do a
I'd love
bit of a
that.
city break. And that was that had been my plan initially with my family, was that we'd go to Chicago for a few days and then make our drive down to you.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think if I had a rental car as well, I'd feel a little bit less reliant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we couldn't, and luckily we all get on well, so weren't trying to get away with from each other. But I think, even if I was there, say, with my husband, in the future, if he decided to come with me, that's how we'd shape it more to be like
Yeah.
a trip.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, he's been to Chicago before, so he's not really even that
No,
so.
don't listen. Yeah, don't bother with him.
No,
Next time you come, we'll meet you in Chicago. We'll do a
do
weekend.
the
We'll
Chicago
have a great
thing.
time,
Yeah,
and come in the summer, and then we go and spend a week or 10 days at the pool.
yeah, exactly.
That
That'd
would be
be amazing.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
disappointed now because I was really getting into my swimming at home, and I was like, I bought myself new swimming togs and everything. I was like, I'm gonna get into that pool, but it was full of antifreeze, or the pipes were full of
And
antifreeze
did you
from the
bring the
shower.
swimming togs with you?
I had them with me and everything, yeah.
Oh
I
my
still
god, it
have
would have
I
been
still haven't had a go with them because I
the
was so
pool.
wrecked
The
last week I
pool would have
couldn't
been
get out of bed.
freezing. No, no, the pool would have
Yeah.
been freezing as
Oh
well.
God.
Because
It's
no,
freezing.
no, it's different. It gets very that pool gets very cold. I don't know what
I
it
would
is about
imagine.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's very cold.
Anyway,
Roseanne, thank you so much for
you're
taking the
more than
time.
welcome. And
Um,
thank you for being a great hostess last week.
oh, you're so welcome. Do you want people to be able to find you online? And if so, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram. I'm enormous on Instagram.
At
For the at
enormous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always a good laugh.
Yeah.
I'm not on Twitter anymore since somebody hacked my account and stole my Twitter account 2 years
I'm
ago.
I'm
So
not on Twitter anymore since Elon
no,
Musk sacked the human
yeah.
rights team. So I'm glad I get to be like, I'm really principled, not just that I got hacked. I have
Not just
principles.
didn't just get robbed. But I'll tell you that. Oh, I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, but listen, thank you. Yeah, it's been great, and it's so nice to be on the podcast. I'm a big. What is it? What is it? Long time listener, first time caller. Oh, cheese ball. Okay,
Thanks so much, Rosie.
talk to you soon, Rosie.
Bye. Not Without My Sister is produced by Liam Garrity, sound and original music by Don Kirkland, and our original illustration is by Lindsay Nielsen.